Okay, hello. For you that don't know me, I'm Toe Grinder. I'm a Mage Theory crafter and guide writer and contributor to the Alter Time Discord. So you probably know by now that mage trees are out, so I thought I would do a video on each tree. So 4 videos, one for the general tree and then one per spec, just so if you're interested you can check out those. I'll have links to them all. I'm going to go through all of the abilities in the tree. I'm going to go through some sample builds, like how I would build it if it was to come out today and I had no time to prepare. And then I'll just kind of wrap up with some general feedback. So that's the plan for each video. So I'll have links to them. Just click on whichever ones you care about. So the general tree. At the start of every general tree is each spec's respective barrier. So that's your like free point that you get. First row, ice block, cone of cold, shatter, and invis. So the other three are the same as they are on live. Shatter's a bit interesting, the general tree. You'll probably end up picking it. In raids, it's not really going to matter, but it's probably better than cone of cold in raids, and it is technically a damage trait in a tree that doesn't have a lot of damage traits. What's more realistic is you probably pick ice block for sure, and then invis situationally. The next row is Frost Nova, can withstand more damage, Ice Block CDR, Decurse CDR on Counterspell when you interrupt, and Movement Speed on Invis. So I think this is actually really good. It is a conduit today, and I do think it's kind of underrated. Like, Fire Stability is really good, but having this huge burst on like a 5-minute cooldown is a very good oh shit button. And it's also quite necessary because it leads on to where Alter Time is in the next row. So the next row is Alter Time, Spell Steal. There's Kleptomania on the tooltip, but I'm not really sure how this works right now. Slow and Mirror Image. So obviously the two you want to pick up here are Alter Time and Mirror Image. They're your two defensive cooldowns. It's kind of awkward that they're on both sides of the tree. So let's see. If I wanted to pick up both of them, I'd probably just go Ice Block CDR and Mirror Image. So you have a really interesting thing here. Slow and Spell Steal are obviously terrible, but in the middle, right bang in the middle of the tree, you have what will probably be one of the more interesting choices if they can actually tune Rune of Power, which is Rune of Power and Incanter Slow. I think people will always say that Rune of Power is going to be better, and they're not wrong with the Shadowlands Rune of Power. There has been a lot of time in the past where these talents are competitive. Rune of Power got a pretty big buff in Shadowlands, and God knows why. But it's kind of just hard lock the spell. Like, this is always going to be Rune of Power if you were to pick it today. But despite Arcane and Fire being burst specs, there has been times in the past where Fire has played Incanter Slow. It's not impossible. Maybe with things like Sun King's Blessing and Firestorm and Left Combustion, those days might be gone. But I do think it is probably worth trying to balance this a little better. I don't think Rune of Power needed the buffs it got in Shadowlands. But anyway, that's my thought on this node. It's probably one of the more interesting nodes in the tree. I think a lot of people are definitely wondering what they would do with Rune of Power, whether they would even show up at all. But yeah, I mean, it's a good ability. It's a good one to have around. And if it is balanced, like Rune of Power and Incanter Slow are different enough that it is one of those more interesting choices. They just need to actually put some effort into balancing the spells. So on the left side, these both buff Mirror Image. Whenever an image dissipates, the first one heals you for 5% of your health, and the second one reduces the cooldown by 10 seconds. So Mirror Image is bugged right now in raids. Pets are coded to work differently in raid combat, and this is affecting Mirror Images. Whenever you take damage, a Mirror Image is supposed to dissipate, but in raids it doesn't. It works in dungeons, it works in the open world, but in raid encounters it does not work. So obviously none of these talents do anything if they don't fix that, but I generally think CDR is better. I think having your live button more often is more useful in progression rating than having your live button be better, generally. So Cryo Freeze, it's a conduit today, it's not very good. Tempest Barrier is a conduit today, but it's also not very good. The next row is interesting. So on the left hand side you have 4% crit, and on the right hand side you have 4% haste. And then here, this is supposed to be 3% DR per point, so up to 6% magic DR. Tooltip is bugged, and then Frost Node duration. So obviously we don't care about this one in raids. Depending on your spec, you are going to want to pick up one of these stat buffs. Like I was saying earlier, whenever you have a tree that is mostly utility with a couple of damage buffs scattered about, it's really important that you maximize the number of the damage points that you pick up. And actually, a lot of your filler points are going to be influenced by trying to get to the damage points. So let's just say, since I'm assuming that fire is going to be the most popular spec among people watching this video, that we want to go haste instead of crit. So interestingly, similar to Rin of Power being in an awkward spot, Shimmer and Ice Flows, well that really means is Shimmer, is in a weird spot. You do have to pick up these, although 6% magic DR is very, very good. I think it's one of those passive things people just tend to forget about, but I mean, it is a very good filler point. You'll have filler points that you're less happy about. So I'm going to click Shimmer here, which is probably what most people will end up playing most of the time. The big advantage to Shimmer for fire especially is being able to not interrupt your hard casts. Whenever we get to the fire tree, you'll see that there are a lot of things that require you to hard cast Fire Blast. You know, Arcane and Frost do a fair bit of hard casting as well. But Ice Flows is actually really good in that situation as well. Ice Flows is not good for Frost. It has pretty poor synergy with Frost because Frost really likes haste. Icy Veins gives it haste. And because it's you cast for like the duration of... You can move while casting for the duration of a cast. The faster your casts, the worse it is. So if you have like lots of slower casts, like Ice Flows is actually quite good. I don't think it'll be Shimmer a lot of the time, but I actually do think that this is probably a closer choice than most people will give it credit for. But let's look at what else is on this row. So Ice Nova, probably a PvP talent. Not really interested. It does just root. Yeah, so you can't use it as an interrupt or anything in Mythic Plus. Barrier Recharge, Barrier CD is already really fast anyway. Movement speed after blinking and alter timing. Usually you use those abilities to get into position anyway, so movement speed afterwards is kind of nice, but it's not massive. And Master of Time, reduce cooldown of alter time by 10 seconds, and whenever you alter time, it resets the cooldown of blink. I think this is the second activation of alter time, but I would need to double check. Either way, it's quite good. It's definitely, for 1 point, it's definitely a lot more impactful than the other three things in this row. So let's throw a point in there. And then the next row is Frigid Winds, slows are better, don't care. Flow of Time, blink cooldown, quite good. And Diverted Energy. Your barriers heal you for 10% of the damage absorbed. So blink cooldown's good, but this row is kind of mopey. But this is where your choice is not going to be influenced by the thing you want here, but what you want further down. So I'm going to go down everything. So Ice Ward, Frost Nova now has 2 charges, and Ring of Frost, don't really care for either. You'll probably play Ring of Frost most of the time, but it doesn't really matter in raids. It's more of a Mythic Plus thing. Shifting Power is the shifting power we know and either love or hate from Shadowlands. It does not have the conduit built in. My evaluation of this spell is it's good. It's going to have its use cases, but it is worse than you think it is without the conduit. Like for something like Frost, this isn't even a DPS increase to press on single target, most likely without the Soulbinds or the Legendary. So yeah, it's good, but it's not as good as you think. Greater Invis. Extremely powerful ability. I question... So each of the 3 specs has their super OP defensive, which is Cauterize, Greater Invis, and Cold Snap. I really question why Arcane is the one that needed theirs put in the general tree. I feel like this one should definitely be Cauterize, and Greater Invis should go in the Arcane tree somewhere. Or this could be a choice node between Greater Invis and Cauterize. I think that would be one of the more interesting choices in the tree, if this was a choice node. But if one of the specs doesn't need something extra, it's definitely Fire. Like Frost and Arcane need help in the utility and like progression kit department a lot more than Fire does. So it definitely makes sense that at least Cauterize is moved out into this tree. So I would really like this to see it be a choice node between Greater Invis and Cauterize. But either way, Greater Invis is a ridiculously powerful ability. So good to see that there. Time Anomaly. So at any moment you have a chance to gain your major cooldown or a proc. So that's like Arcane Surge, Combustion, Icy Veins, or the proc being Fingers of Frost, Fire Blast, or Clear Casting. Or you can gain Time Warp. So how this works is it's not mean to you. It will not give you one you already have. So if you're in Combustion and this proc, you will get a Fire Blast or a Time Warp. If Time Warp's up, you'll get a Combustion or a Fire Blast. And then you can always get a Fire Blast. So if you have both up, you'll get the proc. And that's the same for all 3 specs. So if you're wondering how that interacts, it doesn't. And then the last one is Dragon's Breath. Same as live, except the cooldown is massively nerfed. From 20 seconds to 45 seconds is a huge nerf. Dragon's Breath was very good anyway. I think I kind of got away with a low cooldown for a while, probably because Mage utility wasn't very good to begin with, but if it's going to be shared, probably deserves the nerf. And then Meteor. Something that's important to remember, and I will say this in the other videos, whenever you see a talent, just because that talent doesn't see play today, doesn't mean it's bad. There are some talents that don't see play because there are other busted things in the row. It doesn't synergize well with the class at the time, but that doesn't mean that given a 1-point option in a tree, you would not play it. I think a good example of something like that would be like Pyromaniac in the Fire tree. It's not good today because it competes against Searing Touch and Firestarter, which were both really good, but if it's not competing against those things, it might be good. So the point is, like, keep an open mind about talents that you consider in your head to be bad, because in the context of a different tree where they're competing against different things, they might not be bad. Okay, so initial thoughts. If I was building a Fire Mage for single target, I would probably want Time Anomaly and Meteor. So if I was doing that, I would go like this. Okay, and I'm out of points. So what have I picked up extra? Do I have to drop Mirror Image? Ooh, this is interesting. Let's just go like all the way back here. Yeah, so if I drop Mirror Image, I can get 2 capstones. So this is the awkward thing about something. You have these like half capstones. They're like things like Shimmer where they're not a capstone, but they don't lead into anything. And this is obviously very intentional because they're very powerful. But you know, you are giving up something like Mirror Image if you want double capstone and your utility spells like Shimmer. What I think is quite interesting is that there is this 4% crit that's on the other side of the tree. And like, that's so, like 4% of a stat's a lot. I don't think it's that unreasonable that you go for the stat instead of a capstone. Like if we were to say, okay, I don't actually care about Meteor because Meteor is not very good in raid, Dragon's Breath's not very good in raid, Diverted Energy's not very good. Suddenly you can maybe say, yeah, Ice Block cooldown, Mirror Image, Reduplication, and then I can get my crit buff instead. And like, there's a chance that that's a better tree. Like these utility spells are not good. Who's messaging me? So yeah, these utility spells aren't good. So like this might end up being a better tree. It's really hard to tell until like we can get in game, we can test things, we can sim things. But it's just like, keep an open mind. These end traits are all okay, but none of them are particularly impressive or hard locked, in my opinion. So I can definitely see a world where these stat buffs are just better. Maybe not for a spec like Fire because crit's bad, but for something like Frost where both of these specs or both of these stats are good, like I can definitely see you wanting to try a build like this. And yeah, obviously it's pretty easy if I want to swap my capstone. If I wanted to do like a Fire AoE build, what would that look like? So if I'm doing AoE, I'm almost surely in Mythic Plus, which means I need Dragon's Breath. Drop Shimmer. See, like this is where the trees start to get really awkward. Like, I don't know, can you keep Shimmer on Dragon's Breath on Shifting Power? Maybe. If I drop Master Time, go over here. Oh, I guess I can drop that instead of Master Time and then go this way. Where does this tree? Drop this. I need to drop one more thing. Can I even drop one more thing? Oh no, it's just so unbelievably lost. Oh, I can go this way, I suppose. I can go Blast Wave and then through the tree this way. And then, yeah. No! Brittle. Absolutely brittle. Have I... Oh no, because I haven't taken points out of here. Yes. Okay, sweet. And then I can get another capstone, actually. Ooh. So that's interesting. So if you're happy not taking Shimmer, you can actually end up in a situation where you get both stat buffs and you get both of the good AoE talents for Mythic Plus. Like you'll get your Dragon's Breath, you'll get your Shifting Power. So yeah, like even with like some initial impressions there, like you can see like there is decent flexibility in this tree. I think the one thing I would definitely say is challenge your assumptions of what you think a good talent is. Just because something is good and very powerful today in the context of the choices you make today doesn't mean that it will be good or bad going forwards. So yeah, initial thoughts. I think the Mage General tree's good. One thing to note is Counterspell is not on this. Counterspell is baseline. There are a couple of specs who have to spec into their Interrupt. We don't. We get a baseline. Yeah, so Mythic Plus, you probably pick up Grinding Surge instead. Maybe go Frost Nova over Ice Block. Yeah, like there are actual decisions in here. So yeah, I like this tree. Like I said, the one major piece of feedback is if one thing needs to be in this slot, it's not Greater Invis. Arcane is not the one that needs like punished. I definitely think a Cauterize Greater Invis choice here would be a very interesting choice and would go a long way to helping the imbalance in progression kits between the three mage specs. So yeah, that's my initial impressions of the general tree. If you want to see one of the spec trees, I'll put links to those at the end. So yeah, go click the ones you're interested in or all of them. Thank you.